All right, welcome back, everybody, to Get the Net. We got a quality show lined up tonight. Longtime pro angler Jim Moynagh from Minnesota is coming on. He's the all-time Fort Frances Bass Tournament winner. He's been on tour forever, and he just put up a video the other day. He's got a fresh take on all the whining and everything, and you know, complaints and up-and-comers and all that stuff. So we're gonna have a good chat with Jim. He's been around for a long time. He's got some cool stories, and we'll touch on a couple other things and see you on the other side of the intro. Welcome to Get the Net, a fishing podcast that takes a deep dive into competitive events, fishing news, tips, tactics, and most importantly, interviews with some of the most interesting and in-tuned anglers from Canada to the central U.S. We're leaving no stone unturned to bring you the most raw and authentic dock talk. My name is Jamie Bruce. While my resume says bass, my frying pan says walleye. I'm no stranger to the multi-species realm. Whether you're puttering on tackle, driving the bus, cutting the grass, or killing time in a 9 to 5, we'll try to give you something in every episode to take with you on the water, or at the very least, bring you a few laughs. All right, we're back in the saddle here, a little more regular around here these days without a 9-tournament international tournament schedule going on. So pretty nice, you know, able to catch up on the podcast a little bit. Not have such a hectic schedule. So I just got back from the Winnipeg Ice Fishing Show over the weekend. Been there the last couple of years. It's been a damn good time. Attendance is going up, and it's good to see everyone again. We always have a good time there. Yeah, it's kind of the only time of the year I get to see everyone from all over the place before everyone crawls into their ice shacks. And you know, well, you know how winter goes. There's plenty of snow on the ground, and everyone's thinking ice fishing. So attendance was up. It's crazy how many people are getting into it. You know, it's something that's just constantly growing year after year. So good deal there. Got some fillet derbies going. I just am too competitive. If there's any kind of competition to be had, I'm all over it. There's a walleye fillet championship video up on my YouTube channel now, so that's worth a look there. But otherwise, pretty quiet on the derby front. I mean, there's all the MLF news, and there's a million podcasts about everything going on about that right now. Most of it's just speculation at this point because nothing's really changed. Bassmaster sign up. Actually, this will be coming out on Tuesday, November 6th. That's when you start signing up for all 9. I had an early entry code from last year, so I signed up for the 3 opens the other day. So I'm looking like I'm going to be locked in for those. Those are the 3 Northern Opens. So going to get a little taste of it next year without having to absolutely destroy my entire life, you know, put it on hold and go down there for the year. So it's pretty nice being able to catch up on everything around the house and everything I've been missing out on. It's not all glory on the road, I promise you that. But I am going to miss a little bit. I was talking to my buddy Brad today, and they're you know, they're kicking off at the end of January or first week of February down in Okeechobee, Florida, and it's going to be a little tough watching from the sidelines, but that's the way it goes. So looking forward to checking that out. Looking forward to seeing like all the rosters finally come out. I just was scrolling through the gram. I saw Jake Maddox. He's been in the opens for the last couple of years. He jumped over to NPFL. Taylor Watkins was the all-time money winner on the NPFL. I think he won 3 tournaments in like 2 years on the NPFL, jumped over to the opens, and now is going back to the NPFL. So lots of cool things if you're a bass fishing nerd like myself and spend the winter watching it. There's going to be some bigger names in NPFL. I've heard about some bangers that are heading over there, and going to be cool to watch. But the opens, you know, if you haven't watched my video on the payout breakdown and the new, you know, announcements and live and angler of the year and all that stuff, it looks like they stepped her up pretty good too. So either way, it's a good year to be a bass fan. Maybe not the best year to be like inside of it. It's, you know, I don't regret my decision about sitting on the sidelines and watching, but if I do see that only 75 people sign up for all 9 opens, I'm going to be a little bit choked sitting at home, because if that happens, it might be a little bit easier to make it. But that's what I thought they were going to be last year, and they ended up being 176 or something. So I'm usually wrong when it comes to estimating, but we'll pull Moynagh on here right away. Couple things: ice fishing season, 13 fishing Wicked Pro. That's a rod designed with input from, you know, a few of us up here and in the North Country. It's not your standard like short and stout or short and ultralight bluegill rod, or it's a lot different fishing up here than it is down, you know, on the southern end of the ice belt. And this rod really matches what we do up here. There's a 38-inch medium, a 38-inch medium light. The medium light's an absolute clack shot weapon too, so worth a look there. They got them in stock at Lake of the Woods and at rapala.ca. And while you're there, check out the ice augers. If you have a gas ice auger and you still go ice fishing like regularly, that's that's unfortunate, to be honest. If you only go once in a while, your gas is probably even worse because it's sitting there and the gas lines crack. I tried giving away all my gas ice augers the other day on Instagram, and no one would even take them. I brought them to the Sioux Narrows dump, so hopefully someone picked them up there. But we're all electric. They got the 24 volt and the 40 volt, and the Light Flight down at Lake of the Woods Sports are all on sale right now. There's some bonuses, some free batteries, and some coin off. So worth a look there. And I was scrolling through the old book earlier this morning and saw a bunch of muskies going down at Nordic Point Lodge. The boys are still at her up there. If you're thinking about a trip for, you know, family or business or just bachelor party with the buddies or just a fishing trip, that's a great place. I went up there, did some bass fishing this summer, and it looks like the muskies have been popping. So cool multi-species deal there. Really great food, great hosts, great environment. Check that out at NordicPointLodge.com or check the description below for more details. And if you need somewhere, a new ice fishing destination, if you're kind of getting stuck in that rut of, you know, going to the same common places like Lake of the Woods or, I don't know, North Dakota, wherever they fish, common ice fishing destinations, and you want to break the mold a little bit, check out the Wabigoon chain. It's really good up there. There's lots of crappies, walleyes, you know, a lot of opportunities for lake trout, big lake trout and everything like that around the area. But on Wabigoon specifically, there's a tagged fish contest. Good way to go out there and, you know, give you a little bit of a goal of maybe going to make some money. We tagged some right by the ice road last year, right in town. So you don't have to go far. Might make a little bit of scratch. If you're like me and like to scratch that competitive itch in the winter, then definitely worth a look there. And lots of talk about batteries lately. It's ice fishing season. A lot more people are getting scopes and everything like that. Powerhouse just released an 18 amp hour 16 volt lithium battery that's got the capacity of about a 24 amp hour 12 volt. So kind of a more compact package, get you that high end 16 volt, you know, power your 10-inch screen all day. If you got a bigger screen, you need a bigger battery. There is a 12 volt 30 amp as well. Check those out at Lake of the Woods Sports. And if you're still in the market for a boat, I'm looking at the Lund right now. She's ready to go. She's all cleaned up. I've only owned this one for about 3 months. If you have a buddy or something like that that's looking, it's the ultimate fishing machine. If you have a couple kids, you know, maybe like to go cruising around with the friends, you flip up the back seats and you're good to go. Shoot me a message if you're interested in that, or if you want a new one or a different model. Check out WSL Sport and start looking. You don't want to be caught with your pants down when May and June roll around. You want to get out or get fishing. But that's enough of that. We've got Moynagh sitting here waiting, and we'll bring him on. Well, it's good to have you on, Jim. I'll be honest, when I first started, you know, bass tournament fishing, your name was the one that got thrown around the most for your dominance on Rainy Lake, and kind of been following your career for a while. And man, saw your video the other day, and just made me more of a Moynagh fan.
Oh, well, good. I'm glad I got a fan out there now. Yeah. I'm trying to build my audience, so you got to start with one, right?
Yeah.
No,
well,
I got other fans too, and I'm grateful to have the people that support me and follow me and cheer me on. So thank you to all those people.
Yeah, absolutely. What before we get into it, I'll probably forget to ask you to shout it out. So you may as well fire out your YouTube channel now so everyone knows where to find you.
My YouTube channel is Moynagh Bass Fishes. So that's and on my channel, that's what I talk about. I talk about bass fishing. Sometimes it's tips, sometimes it's maybe just strategy, maybe it might be a lot of it's tournament wrap-ups. You know, I'll report on practice fishing, I'll report on my tournaments, and try to give a little insight onto my thought process through a whole week of tournament fishing, for example.
Nice. Yeah. So the video that caught my eye that you can go watch on Jim's channel, it's you clickbaited it pretty good. You tricked me into thinking that you were, I think it said like, I'm sick of being beat by young prodigies or something. And I was like, oh, not Moynagh now too. And I clicked on it. I clicked on it, and you pretty much, you know, maybe not so aggressively as I might explain it, but you pretty much told all the crybabies to shut up and fish.
Well, yeah, you know, it took me a long time to come up with that title because I knew the content itself was, you know, had potential to maybe draw some viewers and hold people's attention. So I wanted to have a good title, and the title's it is kind of pretty straightforward. I'm sick of getting beat by these young guys, and I'm not going to let it happen.
Yeah, I like it.
The title on that video, it's absolutely very true and straight to the point. So it's clickbaity, yes, but it's exactly how I feel. And that is, I am tired of these young prodigy pro anglers just blasting on the scene and just start taking they're taking the checks, they're taking the trophies, and I'm tired of it. And my point is, I'm 58 years old. I still have all my wits about me. Maybe not quite all the wits, but enough. And I got my physical health, and I still have enough passion and desire for the sport where, by golly, I'm going to be the biggest obstacle, the biggest wall in the way of these guys on their way to dominance. In other words, I'm out there to compete, and I'm not just going to roll over and let them have their way with me or I guess me. So, but I'm also calling to action the fellow people of my generation. Hey, don't just, you know, don't get caught. Don't feel like you're too old. Just get out there and kick some ass.
Yeah, I like that. And you kind of went through, you know, all the most common. I mean, you hit on all of them. The first one was live. We'll go through them, but the first one was live scope. The second one was dad's money kind of thing, you know, for lack of a better term, or just money in general. Time on the water, you know, and you kind of broke all those down and told everyone, like, look, we have all this stuff too. It doesn't matter how you got there. You know, you have that and have everything that these kids have to compete. So get your ass to work.
Yeah. For example, it's like something I've heard from more than one angler of my generation is that I'll hear something to the fact of, well, hey, these kids, they've been growing up on electronics, playing video games their whole lives, and this is just a video game, the forward sonar. And I'm like, wait a minute, stop, time out. I'm 58 years old. We had Pong, we had Atari 2600, we had Asteroids, we had Pac-Man. It was my generation that first started on the video games, and it's my generation that built them. So come on, let's. And it's not, forward sonar is not that hard because, I mean, I'm sure you've used it, Jamie, and all you do is you just it rotates, it mounts on the shaft of your trolling motor. So you just use your trolling motor foot pedal, which everybody knows how to use that pretty much. It has a bass boat. So you just rotate your trolling motor around, and your transducer points a beam, as it rotates around. And then all of a sudden you might see a target. The target could be a stump. The target could be a great big boulder on the bottom. It could be a clump of weeds, or it could be a fish. So now you got your beam on the target. You just cast your bait over there. Then you can watch your bait fall down to the target, and hopefully you see a fish peel out of the target or come and grab your bait. And it's not that hard. So people that are afraid of technology or aren't comfortable with it, it's super easy. It's suey. I mean, if you can use your cell phone, right? Look, this is a highly sophisticated thing, but the operating it's simple. And same with the active target, or forward sonar, same thing.
Yeah.
It's simple.
Do you think it's just a crutch, like a crutch that some of the older guys are leaning on? Like, do you think if forward facing sonar didn't exist and this whole generation was still kicking everyone's ass, do you think they'd just find another excuse?
Oh, see, you hit on a great point, Jamie. And I think maybe in that video I hinted at this. If you took away forward sonar from this generation, from these 20 to 25-year-olds, if you took it away from them, they are still, because they have the passion, and there's so much knowledge out there on YouTube and just on the internet. There's so much knowledge and how-to tips and how to do this, how to do that, how to find bass here, how to find bass there, in windy conditions, sunny conditions, cloudy conditions, pre-spawn, post-spawn, whatever. All that information's out there. So even if this age group did not have forward sonar, these guys would, they would be just, they'd be, and they already are. They just sponge up this information and they go out and apply it. And they have the passion. They're out there all the time fishing as much as they can. And they're going to be tough sticks to deal with regardless whether they got forward sonar or not. It just so happens that they're in a generation where this is a technology available to them, and they recognize that it was an excellent way to catch fish by using this technology. So they have become very, very astute and very skilled with it.
Yeah, I agree. And it gets associated with the young guys lots. But like, you got to think, 25 years ago, the talent pool and the draw to professional fishing and tournament fishing was so much less too. So like, these guys were already coming, like Wheeler and Lee were, that was kind of that initial wave of youth dominance, Palinuk. And because, as the sport grew, it attracted from more regions like yourself. Now there's plenty of people from Minnesota that, fish on the national trail, when back in the day there wasn't. So there's just that competition level, it's pulling from further away. There's more people getting into it younger. And it seems like a lot of the guys that are like, used to skipping spinner baits and fishing shallow are not able to solely rely on that. And it seems like an easy place to blame. And you coming from Minnesota, and you were one of the first guys, if not the first. I don't want to say you're the first, because we'll have to fact check that, but like, you already had a million hurdles to jump, driving and location and learning new fisheries and everything like that. So to me, it looks like you're taking this as just another hurdle.
Yeah, it's just the sport's always evolving. It's always changing, and it's if you get set in your ways in the sport, you fall behind. So you have to read up on the new techniques. You got to stay on top of what's coming down the pipeline. And you always, in this sport, if there's one thing I can say that's really important to really get on a dominant run, and that is to be on the leading edge of something. So that can be a technique, that could be how to read depth finders, how to read forward sonar, just be on the front edge of something. And that is such a huge advantage, because you have this technique or lure or whatever, and nobody else does. And if it is a legitimate tool that catches lots of fish, well, you're going to have this tool available to you while nobody else has it, at least for a while, until people pick up on it and catch up to you. But I've seen that in my career where, for example, I first got introduced to a football jig in the early 1990s by two Western anglers by the name of Randy Best and Ted Miller. So I took that football jig, back here to Minnesota, and pretty much made it my bitch to catch fish. And I totally just started I mean, I was a force in just about every term I'm in Minnetonka. I mean, I was right there contending to win, or I did win. And a lot of it was because of that, having that jig. Nobody else had it. And what I was doing with it and how I was fishing it, where I was fishing it, all that just played into a certain level of dominance that I had here in Minnesota for a while. But eventually, you know, everybody figures that out. And now that's not, I mean, just having a football jig ain't going to do it for me anymore. Here's another example. I was probably one of the very first people in this state to have a Yamamoto Senko. And probably the first time you ever saw it written up in like a tournament report, like here's the top 5 and how they caught them. It would have been I think it was the 1998 Bassmasters Megabucks tournament, where I used that bait to finish third. I made the Megabucks round, got to that round, and then I used that bait quite a bit to catch a lot of my fish in the Megabucks rounds and finished third. So, and nobody knew what a Senko was. I mean, I was shocked that it was even catching fish because it looked so stupid to me, but it did catch fish and nobody else was throwing it. I was on the leading edge of that. And it paid off for a few years, really good. It wasn't, and then, but then eventually other people found out the same thing, how good it was. And I'll never forget, I pulled up to a Bassmaster Invitational. It was sometime, I don't know, in the early 2000s, maybe 3 or 4 or something like that. But I pulled up to Table Rock Lake, and I heard all these competitors around me talking about the Senko. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And I literally put it down for like 2 years and never touched it, because I was so pissed off that people were fishing this bait now, and I'm not the only one who had it. But of course, I did pick it up again, and I've caught just thousands of fish, you know, since then. And it's a good, great fish catcher. But those are just 2 examples where if you get on the cutting edge of something, it can make a difference in performance and put you ahead of others. So that's and that gets back, and that brings me back to where we started this conversation. You can't get set in your ways. You can't let complacency set in place, because you will be left behind. You can't just rely on what you've always known. What you always have known is very important, but if everybody else catches up to you and knows what you know, well, you need to figure out you got to figure out some other aspects of the game that other people aren't maybe as savvy about, and try to exploit that, you know, that little angle. So.
Yeah. I mean, we see it like, you know, you see 90% of the old guard kind of fizzle out as, you know, as they get older and complacent, like you said. But then every once in a while you see, like, you know, someone adapting with the times. Like, I'll use Ted Stooner as an example. I don't know if you ran into him at all back in the day.
Yeah, Ted's a great guy. Yeah, I spent many a times talking to Ted and at the Rainy Lake tournament. So.
Yeah. So him and John Guzzi, you know, they were the tiller guys forever. They'd never even had a trolling motor on the bow of the boat. I actually think they put one on to win a Motor Guide contingency prize at the LaBelle's one year. Like, didn't even plug it in, you know, or wire it, just put it on to win the thing. But they were straight tiller guys. And, you know, within like a year or two of Live Scope coming out, you know, I see Teddy, he's now in a bass boat. He's been fishing out of a tiller his entire life. Now he's in a bass boat. He's asking me what gauge of wire to put on his Live Scope. This is years ago. Like, he was on it immediately because he recognized the importance of that edge. And, you know, he's so hardcore that was like, yeah, I'm not just going to die on my seat here with, you know, with my flasher in the back of the boat. Like, get up there. And he's still very competitive.
Yeah. No, wasn't Ted Stooner wasn't he one of the initial guys that started this whole moping thing up there in Ontario there?
Yeah, yeah. And I was actually just talking to a guy named Jerry Miller the other day, and he was, he was kind of part of the old school hammers around Lake of the Woods and Rainy Lake and everything like that. And everyone's watching it as like it's this new crazy technique that's taken the nation by storm. And it's just like, yeah, it's just how we've caught bass here forever. It was hilarious on the St. Lawrence River Open this year. The two most dominant baits were, the Smeltinator and jerk shad combo, or whatever jig and whatever jerk shad, a jig and a minnow. So it was that and the marabou hair jig, which both came to fruition in this tiny little area. And now we're like, now, and just, in the last few years are making their way down there. So it's been wild to watch that.
Right. Yeah. That marabou jig, that was another one where I got on the front end of, because of you guys up there in Rainy Lake, fishing that Rainy Lake tournament. Jeff Gustafson kind of put my tournament partner on Rainy Lake. His name's Joe Thron. So Joe Thron fished with Jeff a few times, aside from that tournament. And Joe was introduced to this marabou jig. And I'll never forget when Joe first cracked that out when we were at the Rainy Lake tournament. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? I mean, what are you doing with that thing? Well, he showed me. So so I quickly realized how valuable the marabou jig was for catching those finicky smallmouth. And believe me, we rolled that into definitely some Canadian cash, as I'll say.
Yeah. I've got a funny story about that. My first year ever at Rainy Lake, it was way later in the game, like probably, 2007 or 2008, sometime around there. And we were at that old hotel, like on the, at the Sorting Gap, and all the boys were there, and we watched Gussie go grab his marabou vise and some hair and everything, and you followed him into your room or whatever, and he was showing you how to tie them.
Yes, yeah. I remember that day well. That's where I learned how to tie. I'll never forget it,
because everyone was chirping. Our buddy Troy Norman, who's won the tournament a few times since, he's won in Sturgeon Bay's absolute hammer up here. But I remember him chirping Jeff as you guys were walking. And he's like, if you're showing him the marabou, he better show us the swim jig. Because I don't know, we got to get into this, because like you and Thrun were everyone just swore, I'm sure people came in and shit hawked you and in your bay and in the reeds, and everyone just said they're just using a swim jig, and no one had ever caught one on a swim jig. And I'm sure you're mixing a lot of other things in there, but we got to get into that part a little bit.
Yeah. Well, back to Gussie showing me how to tie this. Joe had already been using these jigs, so it wasn't like I was just learning this. We'd already used it, but I hadn't tied.
You just want to know how to make them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Jeff gave me the juice on picking the right marabou and how to tie it, and it's kind of time. It still takes me like an hour to tie one jig, because that's how meticulous I get about it. And
yeah, that's tough.
But I don't know. It's that little thing just definitely threw some Canadian cash down our way.
Yeah. Did you you and Joe have won the Fort tournament 5 times?
Yes. Yeah.
The first win was in was it mid-90s? I don't have the stats pulled in front of me. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, they started. I think the first year they held the tournament was 95. The first year that Joe and I fished, it was 97, and we got second. Then we won in 98. Then we won in 99, and then in 2000, I think we got second again. And then the next year, I think we got third. And then it wasn't until like 07, 08, 09, or 08, 09, 10. We won 3 years in a row, and we were on the cusp of winning our 4th one in a row. However, the 3rd day we went out and we could only catch 3 fish. So we ended up, it was a 5-fish limit, and we had 2 decent ones and 1 kind of smallish one. And so we ended up not winning that year. So
what
But that was like, we haven't won since. So it's been over 10 years since we've won it. We did get a second a few years ago, but you know.
Did you get your like initial edge for the first time you came there? Were you already on tour and like, you know, traveling around and we're like, oh, there's big money in this tournament here. Let's go there.
Yeah, it's well, I turned pro in 1995, what you'd say like a traveling pro.
Yeah.
And then my first year on FLW was 90. I fished some of the tournaments in 97, and then I also fished what would be then what it would have been considered the elites back then on Bassmaster.
Yep.
So I fished that for a couple of years. They called it like the Kmart Top 100 or the Top 100s back then, but that's the equivalent of what the elites are now. Yep. So, but what I liked about going to Rainy was I don't know, there's just a lot of fish. I got to fish with, you know, one of my best friends, Joe Thrun, and we, I mean, our first year there, we were, you know, took a second place, and I was like, wow, this is pretty awesome. And then plus the tournament itself was getting bigger and bigger every year. I mean, they had at the best, there was a few years there where they gave 50 grand for first place. And I mean, how can you beat that? So, and I think we won one of the years we won, we got 50 that one, at least one time. So it hit
like 200 boats with a huge waiting list too, right?
I think they capped it at 135, but
okay.
there was a huge waiting list.
Yeah. And KBI was like the same, you know, around that time.
Yeah.
So when you first showed up, that's when the smelt were going off. And did you join that party or did you go?
Oh my God. I so miss the smelt days. I so miss those smelt days.
This is what Jerry was saying the other day. He was just talking about the smelt. So I got to bring it up.
Yeah. I miss it so bad because the fish, every smallmouth you catch would jump and you just see these white things just fly out of their mouth all directions. And then you'd see other smallmouths attacking these smelt that just flew out of the one smallmouth's mouth and landed in the water, and you see these fish just attacking these smelt that were just flying this way and that. It was I so miss that. It was and not only that, that style of fishing and how you fish and how you pattern the lake was so much different then than how it is now. Now it's more of a crawdad base, maybe a perch base, whereas then it was just smelt, and that's what we did. We just and we had it dialed down pretty good. And then all the smelt died, and now it's been like a crawdad perch kind of a forage base, and the style of fishing and where the fish set up is different now.
Was your first win on the smelt, like out in that Reef Point zone? That was
exactly. There'd just be schools of fish set up out there, and we caught a lot of them out there. So, but not all of them. I mean, we had a lot of places to go to depending on weather, wind, and but yeah, that area was always good. But you can hardly even weigh a fish off of that area now.
Yeah,
and I really don't think there's as many bass in that whole section of the lake as what there was back in the 90s either. The walleyes have gotten in there, big walleyes, and I think a lot of the biomass has gone into walleye instead of smallmouth in that whole section of the lake.
Yeah, I don't hardly get to fish it anymore, like not in the last, 7 or 8 years or anything like that. But when I first started fishing was like on the tail end of the smelt thing. And that's when you guys were doing your shallow water dominance, just a total 360, like fishing reeds and everything like that. So that
was part of that wasn't necessarily smelt. We had these fish shallow, which are more of the crawdad perch. There were still crawdad perch eaters then, but then we also had the smelt factor. So we had a lot of options depending on weather and conditions. And after fishing it for multiple years, we kind of knew what type of fish we should go after under what weather condition.
So what we talk about, competitive edge. And, that's how you get into those major streaks. But it's not like you just showed up and had one magic bait or or one Magic Bay or anything like that. It kind of sounds like your competitive edge. And I know, you know, I know from talking to people and listening to you that your work ethic is top notch. Like no one beats you to the ramp and no one beats you off the water. Was that your competitive advantage at the time, or like why were you so dominant for so long? Or was it like, was just everyone around not able to keep up at the time, or like what was it?
Well, I think there's a number of factors that played into that. One would be the number of like good tournament fishermen in that neck of the woods was limited. So a lot of the field just consisted of people that maybe had caught some smallmouth in their life and decided they wanted to get in this tournament because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so the level of competition is way tougher now up there. But back then it wasn't quite so stiff. I mean, you had some good anglers, but then, you know, it fell off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's no disrespect to those people. I mean,
no, I mean, we all saw it. Like it was dominance, and you made everyone like around here a better angler, you know, because they were forced to turn into better anglers to be able to overthrow you and Thrun.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a big part of it. But then just see, once you have like, we had success in 97, the first year in it, we got second.
Yeah.
And so that kind of, when you have success, you have something to build on for the next time. So when we came back in 98, we built on that and found other areas where we could catch fish, and it just, and then of course the weather would change, and there'd be days where we wouldn't catch them. Like there would be some of those years where we won, there'd be practice days where we'd hardly catch a thing. Well, all that stuff just builds into what you learn and how you think about what the fish are doing. So yeah, success kind of builds success in a way. Yeah.
Well, your record's a tough one. There's I think the next closest is Mike Luman. Him and Brian won this year, and I think that puts him at 3. So he's, you know, everyone knows that you've won 5 times. So I think he's hunting that a little bit, but I mean, the overall dominance it's like unprecedented. That was,
yeah. Well, Mike and Brian and Mark Raveling, yeah, those guys are, you know, that's I mean, that's what lights my fire when I go up there is guys like that. You know,
yeah,
Troy,
Samson, Norman.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Gussie, there's a lot. Yeah. The list goes down to where there's like 25 teams that could win any year now, you know, realistically, yeah. where in the past it was like, you know, you could pick 4 teams and one of those was going to win. That seems to be like the same
most of the time. Yeah. Every once in a while, there was somebody would pop up out of nowhere. And like there was was he the policeman or the sheriff? It was Barney. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name, but that was a year. That year, one of the years we finished second. We caught so many fish in that tournament, but we could not catch the 4-pounders. So we weighed, I think it was like 1802, 1804, and like 1806 all 3 days, and we got beat by less than a pound. And we just couldn't catch the like 4.5 pounder. We kept calling up to these 3.5 pound type fish, and we just couldn't break that really, you know, with a true, you know, kicker. So, but yeah, that guy, he and his partner, they came out of nowhere that year and put together 3 really good days. And there's been other guys too, but yeah, it's Raveling and Luman and Brian Gustafson, Jeff Gustafson. Those guys are year in, year out. They're going through the tent, as they say.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a nice little walk down memory lane. I like that. I didn't, it's, yeah, you're still, your name's still on the list every year because everyone's trying to beat your record.
Well, I didn't get to fish there this year, unfortunately.
Yeah, so. I pulled it up. I haven't fished there, and like I'm not entrenched in that tournament like a lot of these guys are. There's another big smallmouth tournament on Lake of the Woods that same weekend now, so it kind of, you know, dilutes that a little bit. But I did pull up the results and look for you because I know you usually try not to miss it.
Yeah, try not to, but it's just the way these schedules work out. Sometimes you can't. I can't get up there. So
Yeah, yeah, you're all over the damn place. You had I pulled your results and you know, I kind of follow you pretty regularly. I saw you've been all over the place again this year. You were at that the US Open on, is it Lake
we
Mead or is
have
that
to get a
Mojave?
contingent. We have to get a contingent of northern guys from this area, your area, Minnesota, and go there because it's so right up the it's so right up the alley of what we do up here. I mean, you get like Troy Norman or Samsel or Brian, Jeff, get those guys down there and they'll get on. They'll be contenders down there instantly. I just know it. It'd be fun to just get a whole contingent of guys from Minnesota and Northwest Ontario and go down there.
I looked at it and saw it was all
take the
small.
trophy back to the Midwest.
Yeah,
or to Canada, a whole other country.
It was 32 hours away, it said, but I was like, oh, that's the same distance as Florida. Like, it's not that bad. But it's the problem with that one is in October, and all the best bass anglers around here are all into the hunting scene too. So there's some overlap there. It'd be a tough sell, but I've got it circled. Was it that was your first time there?
Well, I fished the US Open on Lake Mead, like, I don't know, 4 times, maybe something like that. And I got to thank Bridgeford Foods for stepping up and getting me down there. I mean, they're like my main sponsor, and it's kind of like a little bonus at the end of the year where they kick in a little extra money so I can go do this one. So thanks to Bridgeford Foods for that. But so last year was the first year they moved the US Open from Lake Mead to Lake Mojave because the Lake Mead's water levels were so low they couldn't hold it there.
Yeah.
So I wasn't out there last year, but this year when Bridgeford made the offer, I'm like, yep, I'm going. I mean, there was no thought process. I'm like, yeah, I'm going. And it's really fun. I like fishing down there. It's just fun place to fish for sure.
Yeah.
Whether you're on Lake Mead,
I saw you snuck down there. Because I always go through the list and was like, oh, Moynagh's sneaking over. Because they're, like, there are a few guys that aren't West Coast guys that have been kind of going more and more every year.
Yeah. You see like Spencer Sheffield, he's been there and he's done extremely well. And there's other guys, Kevin Short, and I mean, there's other guys, I can't think of them all, but of course you got some of the Western aces that are, you got like Brett Height, and you got Josh Bertrand, and then you just got the regional guys that are hot sticks, like one of my Bridgeford teammates, Joe Uribe. He's that guy's dominant force out on those Western trails, and he's in that tournament. So it's a lot of fun, and the tournament's like the biggest event. This is the biggest bass tournament out west every year, and the anglers get behind it, and it's like everybody circles that. Every Western angler circles that tournament on their calendar, and the excitement builds with each day that tournament gets closer. Yeah,
it'd be like us for the Kenora Bass International, kind of the
same exactly
idea, like the big.
Which I want to get back to that one someday.
Yeah. I don't
know if you know it, but I fished it 3 times, like back in the late 90s. Joe and I fished it 3 times, but we didn't quite have the dominance figured out then. We cashed checks, but certainly didn't. I mean, didn't have it figured out like Rainey.
Yeah, it's a crazy one. There's a million options there now to go wherever you want, and the weights are absolutely out of control. Like they're, in 2014 we had under 21 pounds. We had like 20.6 something, and it was the tournament record at the time. This is 2014, so only 9 years ago, and it's probably been beaten like 8 or 10 times since that one day, or like right around there. And
are they doing that? Are they beating that record with the largemouths or with the smallmouths?
The all-time record is 2240 right now, or 2220. It's Ollie and Jason Gibbons. Those were largemouth, but all of the other ones, the 3-day weight record, everything like that, are all smallmouth. Wow. It's wild. And like, a lot of these guys you can win it without catching a single 4-pounder. Like that's how good the caliber of bass is. You can go catch 15 395s, and that's like a reality, you know, that 380 to 395. It's not like they're just getting a big fish and getting lucky here and there and putting together a 20-pound bag. Like, they're all just so solid. It's wild.
Yeah, that's you know, a lot of times, you know, a common question that we get asked, I'm sure you've been asked this question: what is your favorite lake? And depending on my mood, sometimes I say Rainy Lake, other times I say Lake of the Woods, because Lake of the Woods is so diverse. I mean, you got clear basins, you got dirty water basins, you got, and just for fishing, I mean, you got world-class muskies, you got the smallmouth, you got the walleye, you got lake trout in certain basins, there's crappies, right? There's crappies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just the diversity of species and just top caliber fishing in all those species. So,
yeah, I don't ever get bored of it. Some of these lakes, like, this is my first year going down south all year, you know, to do the 9 opens. And like, some of these, we get 4.5 days of practice, which probably seems crazy to a touring guy like you. You know, you're used to the standard 3. But like, after a couple days, I would be like sick of looking at that specific lake if it was a, you know, a smaller body of water. And I'm just like, yeah, I've never felt this at home in my life. Like, where I'm, you know, because there's so many bays and so many islands and so many options. And some of these southern reservoirs, I'm just like, all right, I guess I'll take another lap through here.
yeah, definitely. So how did you like fishing on the opens this year?
I mean, competitive wise, like, you know,
it was your first year. It was your first year, right?
Yeah, I did 2 of them last year. Like, I went to Cherokee and Hartwell, and those went well. So I was like, okay. I actually tried to get into 3, but I didn't get into the Florida one, and then I got a 3rd and a 18th, and the 2 I did. I was like, oh, I needed to get a mid-pack finish in Florida to make the elites, and then they moved it to 9. So I was like, okay, I'll go do 9.
Oh.
And had never chased largemouth in the US really before or anything like that. So there was a lot of culture shock, but I mean, it was cool. Like, I rolled around with had Brad Leitner and Adam Rasmussen. They were kind of my travel partners, and we had a good time, and, you know, had a few good finishes and saw a bunch of cool places. But like, I said it to a few people around here the other day. I was like, I can go out on Lake of the Woods after work and catch more fish than I can in a week on some of these southern places. And I'm sure you felt that too.
I'll tell you. Okay, my tournament partner's Joe Thrun, as we mentioned earlier. I can't tell you the number of times where we'll talk at night, and he'll be back here in Minnesota, and he'll be like, "Yeah, how'd you do down there on Ross Barnett?" And I'll be like, "Man, Joe, I just had 3 bites all day." He's like, "Oh, well, you know, I caught 30 in 3 hours, you know, after work." You know, it's like,
yeah.
He's good. He's good about razzing me that way.
Yeah, that's a tough adjustment though, to go down there, because like, there were a few times when, you know, they'd call your number in the morning. I'm like, okay, where am I going to catch a single bass? Because you're so used, like, you kind of set up your tournament mindset to catching a whole pile of fish, just because that's how it is around here. But like,
yeah,
in KBI for a long time, Brian and I exclusively fished largemouth. And, you know, we were used to only getting like 7 bites a day. So that, like, I feel like that helped me. But I mean, to go from the smallmouth fishing around here, where you're like, okay, if we catch, you know, 60 in this bay, we'll have 18 pounds or whatever, to down there where there's big ones. But like, if you lose one, you're not getting that opportunity back. And
right,
that's a wild one.
Right. Yeah, I did watch one of your YouTube tournament videos on, it was, I forget what lake it was, but it was one of those lakes where, like what you just said, you didn't know if you were going to catch one that day.
Yeah, probably Watts Bar.
Yes, that was the one. Yes, that was the one.
That place sucked.
I went fishing there for fun one time, and I caught, it was like, I found a school of fish out on a ledge out there, because it was like early June or something, but they weren't big, and there wasn't a ton of them. Caught maybe like 7 or 8 there, and then that's all I caught in like 5 hours. So.
Yeah, and I shouldn't chirp it too bad. Like, you know, the only reason that everyone was griping about it was because of the 15-inch minimum. Like, there were a ton, you know, you could go catch 20 to 30 sub 15-inch fish, like, and a lot of 14 3/4, and like the difference between doing good there or not was getting one that was 15.5 or 16 inch, or like, it was still, it actually wasn't that bad fish wise, but like somewhere like Toledo Bend, I made a top 20 there on 9 bass. Like in a, in a 225 boat field. Like, it was
9 bass over 9 bass you caught weighed over 3 days, you mean?
No, 2 days. 2 days.
2 days. Okay.
Yeah. So it was like, when you'd swing the bat, it'd be a 5 or 6 pounder most of the time. Wow. But it was just like, 3 or 4 hours in between bites, or 2.5 or whatever. And that was just kind of foreign. Did you must have had that culture shock when you went down there, like when you first started back in the 90s.
Well, yeah, because here's why. When I first started, the largemouth bass virus just hit everything down south. So fisheries that are tough now were like ultra tough during that period of time. And it was brutal. I mean, I'll not, like I mentioned Ross Barnett a minute ago. I fished a tournament there where I practiced 3 days. It was a Bassmaster Invitational. 3 days of practice. I had 2 bites. 2 bites in 3 days of practice, and it happened to be right in this one little spot. So, well, it wasn't a little spot, this one area. And so for the tournament, I'm like, well, I guess I'll go there. Well, wait, I did have one other bite in one other place. So I'm like, okay, I'll go there. Well, after the first day, I was sitting 3rd place because there was only 3 limits caught. First and second had a limit, and I had a limit. That's how tough it was. And it wasn't a huge limit. I remember I had just like, it was a 12-inch size limit. And I remember I had a couple that were a little bit over 12, and then, a couple 2-pounders and that. And man, that was brutal. Ross Barnett's a lot better now. Although when they put 200 boats on that lake, it's a crowded lake from what I understand, because I haven't been back to Ross Barnett for a long time.
Yeah, 225 boats don't hide very well on any lake. When you go to somewhere that's like condensed a little bit, like Leech is going to be real interesting this year. I think I've never been there, but I've been around the north enough and looked at it on Earth and to scale and everything, and was like, yeah, that's I think a lot of these guys think they're going to come up and have it be like St. Clair and just smallmouth galore and fish anywhere, but it'd probably get a little bit tight out there.
Yeah, they should not have put their tournament on that lake. It's going to fish tiny.
Yeah, so it'll probably look like Oneida, New York, or somewhere like that, or maybe worse.
Yeah, it's going to be awful. I mean, it's going to be so. Well, I don't know how many. They always can add or subtract these lakes that are connected. So how many of those they have on the permit that you can, go, run these rivers and streams to these other lakes, right? That'll help spread some of it out. But a lot of times they just say you can't go there.
Especially in the opens, they almost never let you go. Like so I'll use St. Lawrence River for an example. We took off out of Waddington and weren't allowed to go, like too far past Clayton. Like you weren't allowed to go in the lake. Million reasons why not. And there's tons of fishable water there, but not like, or we weren't allowed to. The only place we were allowed to lock was the Harris Chain. Everywhere else was no locking. So like, and we fished Wheeler Lake and Watts Bar and all that, like, all lock tournaments.
Yeah.
But then, you look at the elites and like when the elites are going to Waddington, they're going out of the same town. They're allowed to go wherever they want. So I don't know if it's just like I don't know what it is, but for whatever reason, the biggest fields are always condensed. So I'd be really surprised if they opened up anything other than just Leech Lake proper.
Yeah. See, it's the Minnesota DNR that puts those restrictions on. It's like the tournament organization can ask to have these other lakes included, but the DNR ultimately can say, no, we don't want you taking fish from this basin running through this, this narrow river or stream, and then, weighing them in this other whole different part of the lake. And so
maybe that's why it's the opens fields then, because it's 2.5 times the impact of a 90 or 100 boat elite tournament. So that makes sense too. But yeah, it's going to be, honestly, I don't care. We could be going to a pond anywhere. If there's an open 5 hours from my house, I'm licking my chops at it, because the closest.
Well, that's the thing.
Hours.
It's like Leech Lake is like that can be at the landing in 40 minutes from where I live. So
yeah,
I got out there a couple of times this year just playing around. And in fact, I was out there about a week and a half ago just looking around. So
nice.
Yeah, that was kind of fun. But
you might have to jackpot it if you're around.
Well, yeah, or I might just do the whole open series. We'll see.
Are you throwing around the idea of doing all 9?
Yeah, I'm throwing that idea around. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they obviously the payouts aren't really sustainable, but I mean, let's be honest, in most bass fishing leagues, you can't survive off the payouts anyway. And they kind of upped a few things. And yeah, I never thought I'd hear that from you. I thought you were just going to sign up for the MLF again, but obviously there's some major changes there.
Yeah, I haven't finalized my decision on that, but you know, actually every year, well, not every year, but it seems like in the last 6 or 7 years, it's I've always weighed the option of fishing the Bass Opens.
Yeah,
and so again, I'm doing the same thing again this year, and so I don't know. I'm not sure where I'm going to end up, but I mean,
you got till tomorrow morning to decide. Well, that's when it opens. The registration
for tomorrow. That's for the. I mean, they have it broken down as the categories, right? Like tomorrow's like the guys that fished it last year get to sign up tomorrow.
I don't think so.
No?
I could be speaking out of turn, but I might be wrong. But I think I didn't read into it that much because I'm not doing all 9. But the way I read it is that if you're signing up for all 9, that opens tomorrow.
Oh,
we might have to look at it.
Yeah, they have it broken down as, you know, if you're a life member, you can sign up this day. If you're part of Bass Nation, this day. Yeah, then like if you're doing all 9, it's they had it broken down, and I didn't quite understand the designations for all the categories they had.
The best way would just be to go on there tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock and see if there's a spot to enter a early registration code. Then it's obviously not open yet, but yeah, I think it's open to all 9 tomorrow. Oh. Like the guys fishing all 9, because they didn't send out any more early registration codes. Like I think you got them if you were the top 25 in each of the divisions, you got an early entry, and the elite guys got early entry codes. But everyone else, I think it's just wide open.
Oh,
I might be wrong. It's not going to fill up anyway, right? So it's not like.
Well, how do you know?
Yeah, you're right. I talked about this before you got on, but like last year I was like, oh, 9 is crazy. Like I, work full time. I have a wife here and a house. I'm like, I don't know if I can do that. And I'm like, well, this might be your chance. Like there might only be 70 people sign up for all 9. And I was like, oh yeah, it's probably going to be between 70 and 100. And it was 176. So yeah, I'm definitely not the guy to ask. I mean, it could be 80. It could be 220.
Yeah. So yeah, I got less than 18 hours to figure this out, I guess. I might be stressing you out
no, without it being warranted, but yeah, definitely keep an eye on that. Well, that's cool. Is that more schedule that's pulling you that way, or is it just because of the FLW kind of direction lately it's gone to just taking 5?
Well, I mean, like I said, I've considered this. I mean, I take both leagues into consideration.
Yeah.
So what I do is first I take the schedules, put them both on the calendar. I put the Rainy Lake tournament on my calendar. I put what's called the Champions Tour, which is a Minnesota league. I put that on my calendar. I throw some Toyota Series on there. And then I kind of look to see how much conflict there is between everything.
Yeah.
What if I do Bassmaster? Can I do the Champions Tour? I want to do the Champions Tour. That's Minnesota League. I really like that. So I try to see what works around that. But I also have to take into mind what's my main goal here. Well, I still want to compete at either in the elites or the Bass Pro Tour. So actually that kind of takes priority, either one of those two. And then the Champions Tour has to fit around that. And same with Rainy Lake, that has to fit around that. The Toyota Series tournaments with MLF, they got kind of, you know, I got to find something that fits.
Yeah.
But then I look at as far as, so I try to make things fit. So like for example, 2 years ago, MLF had a Tackle Warehouse Invitational on Sam Rayburn. And then 2 weeks later, they had a Toyota Series 2 weeks later on the same lake. So I try to get tournaments grouped together in the same parts of the country, so I'm not zigzagging all over the place so much, and spend less time driving, more time just chilling and fishing. But but I got to keep my overall career goals in mind. So what's going to be better for my overall career? Do I want to try to qualify for the Bass Pro Tour, or do I want to try to qualify for the Bassmaster Elites? So, and we've seen some changes with the Bass Pro Tour. So I feel like with the Bass Pro Tour, trying to qualify to get to there, I really don't know what I'm qualifying for anymore because I change it every year. Whereas with the elites, it's like, hey, I know what I'm getting into. If I fish these opens, I know what the end. I know what the the destination is. I know what it is. I know what it's all about. You know, but
yeah, and they, you know, like Bassmaster's got such a name and like kind of the most concrete structure for rising through it. It's not like, you know, how it was in MLF a couple of years ago where they're just like, oh yeah, you qualified for this. So we had some changes and you're not going to make it. Like you can't rule it out, but you can't really expect that to come, you know, on the Bassmaster route.
Yeah, exactly. It just, and then I look at how the two leagues handle rule violations.
Yep.
And I just, yeah, I mean, that's important to me.
Oh, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's so I don't know if it's just more in the spotlight now or what it is, but like I've talked to plenty of folks that are just, you know, especially guys that came from MLF and jumped over to the opens this year. And they're like, yeah, like, you know, you want to qualify and go hang out with their words were a bunch of cheaters, you know, and I know there's a small core group that are definitely on the wrong side of the gray more often. You know, obviously there's a lot that have a lot of integrity, and I am curious to see kind of where everyone lands this year and how that's going to look.
Yeah, that, you know, I like to see rule violations out in the open and discussed, and it, you know, gets everybody all up in a buzz. But you know, rule violations, they need to be out in the open. We need to know what the violations are, who's doing these violations, and what their penalties are. Instead, I hate it when they try to hide everything. That's just not good. I mean, it's just let's be out in the open with it. Let's not hide things. Let's not. I still can't believe what MLF did with the Jeff Sprague thing. I mean, they weren't going to do nothing with it until finally it became exposed through some efforts of some other fishermen. So
yeah, that was presented to them out wide in the open and then just buried away, and they thought they were done with it.
Yeah, they thought they're done. They thought they could just bury it and not, even though the guy was a super direct violation of a serious rule, they were not going to do nothing about it.
Yeah, no, and I was looking at the there's an Instagram page called Advanced Bass Stats. I'm sure you've seen it before, but he had kind of broken down like, okay, this is how it's looking like, you know, because they said they're taking the top 35, you know, and then some other guys that they're taking like at the top 10 from the next year. But they had it, and Sprague was way up high on the list. I'm like, yeah, it's just major offense and just keep rolling. Like, you know, I don't know how they expect to continue that way, like when he's been outed that publicly.
Yeah.
It's interesting, but I mean,
so they decided that they're going to take him forward in this super elite group, while as some guy, or many of these guys that are probably most all of them that are getting cut, you know, a lot of those guys, I mean, they fish with a high level of integrity and sportsmanship, and you're gonna keep some deadbeat dude in your league and kick out some, you know, some legit dude.
Yeah, no, and we saw that unfold at Cayuga too. Like, that was out of control.
Yeah, you know, I never really. That was one. I at that point when that hit the scene, I was like controversied out. I'm like, I'm not even gonna get involved in it. I never watched any of the streaming video. I just heard it, just how controversial everything was, and I've talked to some of the Bass Pro Tour pros and gotten some different perspectives on it, and in some, I don't know, some, I guess I feel like I don't have the whole story there, so I don't like to make a judgment.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat. I get that. Huh. Well, that's interesting. Do you have a pretty good beat on like the core group? Like, do you have lots of guys that you talk to regularly about changes and things like that? Like, do you have a vibe on how it might look if a lot of these guys that have been in the invitationals / FLW tour / tackle warehouse / whatever, you know, the million different names, are there a few more that does it sound like the vibe is kind of moving over to the opens this year, or is it just individual?
Yeah, I'm not on any sort of vibe. So I speak for myself, and I haven't spoken to anybody else as far as you know, what they're doing. Well, although I did speak with Jim Tutt today from Texas. He was a longtime FLW Tour pro, and last season was his first year out, where he's decided to sit it out. And so I talked to him just this afternoon, in fact, and he's playing. He's got some ideas he's playing with, so we might see him come back, but we'll see. He's happy where he's at now, but he loves to compete and fish. So yeah.
Well, if you're going to be anywhere and not on a tour, Texas is probably the place to be. Like, you can go fish as much.
Or as much. Yeah, he's got some really good they got some big tournaments down there in Texas that pay really well. So you can, and there's good competition. So you can certainly satisfy your competitive, or, you know, urges or whatever. So,
yeah, I agree. Well, I'll, not chew up too much of your night, because I know you got some decisions to weigh out. But it was man, it was awesome to have you on here. Any of these topics I probably could have talked to you about for 3 hours and gone on, but you know, we gotta keep it around an hour. Really interested to see how your schedule looks this year and what your decision is. That'd be pretty damn cool to see you competing in Minnesota in the Bassmaster Opens. You know, I'm going to be watching the roster pretty tightly to keep an eye out for your name.
I would love to. I'd love to get into the elites, and just for this one purpose alone, this one reason alone is motivation enough. Just to add another northerner into the elite field would be good, because we've really made quite the stamp. You know, you got guys in Ontario. You know, you got the Johnstons, you got Gussie, you got the Minnesota contingency guys now, and it'd be fun just to add another guy in there, whether it's me or you know, Brad Luthner or whoever, or you, or you know.
Yeah, Cooper Gallant made it last year too. That was another Ontario guy.
Yeah, I don't know Cooper. I don't really know Cooper. So, and I barely know you, Jamie. I don't think I ever heard your name until I was watching a podcast where Jeff Gustafson was a guest, and he mentioned about the big sticks back home on Lake of the Woods that are been around, and you were one of the names, and I'm like, oh, I better check mark that one in my head.
Yeah. No, Gussie's always good for giving a shout out. I'm sure there are 20 more names on the list, but I'll take it. And man, guys like you and him have have made it like feasible. You know, you both blaze the trail from your respective areas, and I mean, without that, it would just be still Southern dominated. So pretty damn cool, man.
Yeah, it's I like to see a lot of the Northern guys get in there, so that's cool. But I still have this part of me that wants to be the king of the Northern guys, and that crown is not on my head, that's for sure.
Well, you got the work ethic. You're still, I'm sure you're still going dark to dark.
I do. I mean, I mean, when you get into like a June 20th tournament, I'm sorry, I'm not out there dark to dark, okay? Because you'd have to be out there from 4:30 till 10:30, and
yeah, and you get home at midnight and have to eat something and go to bed and wake up at 3:30.
Yeah, wake up. Yeah, and then your batteries aren't even fully charged. So
yeah, no, I learned that the hard way. I was like, I'm gonna go dark to dark. Well, it's 4.5 days instead of 3 too. So you're just like, well, I'm sure you've had it in Toyotas, but yeah, it's a different kind of tired.
Yeah.
But what was your YouTube channel called again?
Yeah, Moynagh Bass Fishes.
That's right, Moynagh Bass Fishes. Go check out his most recent video. You got an Instagram, Jim?
I've been holding off on that.
You may as well just stay that way, you know.
you know, if the sponsors if the sponsors twist my arm hard enough, I guess I'll have to cave in. But I've been holding off so far. I got a Facebook page, and then I got this YouTube channel, and I'm hoping my sponsors are happy with what goes down there.
Yeah, I'm sure they are on the YouTube front. That's kind of seems to be the hardest one for anyone to get into. It's a lot more different putting yourself out there and putting yourself in front of a camera than it is just posting a sunset picture. So I'm sure you're on the right track there. And like I said, go check out Jim's most recent video and keep an eye out for him next year on whatever tour he chooses in the next 12 hours.
Yeah. That's right.
All right, thanks, pal. I'll leave you to it. Best of luck next year, and I appreciate you coming on. And if you're ever up this way, look me up anytime.
All right, awesome, Jamie. Thanks for having me be a guest on your show here.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming, pal. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.